Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So we are discussing Bhagavad Gita, and we have discussed chapter 1, chapter 2 and chapter 3. Now we are on chapter 4. So chapter 3 we discussed about Karma Yoga. And Karma Yoga we defined as actions in Krishna consciousness. That was Karma Yoga. Karma means action and Yoga means linking. Action which are done for Krishna, that is Karma Yoga. And we had two types of Karma Yoga, pure Karma Yoga and impure Karma Yoga. So impure Karma Yoga is when you act for Krishna but with some desires. That's impure by your desires. You want something in exchange. And pure Karma Yoga, you act for Krishna just without any desires. And that is possible only when you love Krishna. No, otherwise it's impossible. And that is devotion. So that means pure Karma Yoga means devotion, Bhakti Yoga. That's all. So now fourth chapter is when you do action for Krishna, when you serve Krishna. There are many activities in Krishna consciousness you can do. You can preach, you can chant, you can cook, you can clean, you can spread bed sheets. That's also Karma Yoga. So there are many actions. So actions, what does Karma Yoga help? Karma Yoga helps us to purify our heart. Is it? And when the heart is purified, then the heart is ready to get knowledge. That is why we learned action precedes knowledge. That is why third chapter is Karma Yoga, fourth chapter is Jnana Yoga, transcendental knowledge. Jnana Yoga, that's all. So action precedes knowledge. Without action, knowledge cannot be matured into realizations. It's impossible. So there's a link between action and knowledge. Action helps knowledge to mature into realizations. And knowledge inspires action. It goes both way. But what precedes? What is the first? First is service. That is why when people come to Krishna consciousness, what we ask, like Prabhupada always said, that chanting is for masses, philosophy is for classes. Prabhupada said that. So for masses, you distribute prasad, you ask them to chant, you do ask them to some services. When they advance by chanting and all those things, then we ask them to take knowledge. So fourth chapter is knowledge. So there's a sequence, Karma Yoga, then fourth chapter, Jnana Yoga. Now we are on Jnana Yoga. So chapter 4 starts with this transcendental knowledge. Now, before I read this chapter 4, and again like Karma Yoga, we also have Jnana Yoga. Jnana Yoga is also impure Jnana Yoga and pure Jnana Yoga. Again, same thing. So, Prabhupada translates Jnana Yoga as Bhakti Yoga. Just like he translates Karma Yoga as Bhakti Yoga. Why? Because there are two types of Jnana Yoga. One is pure Jnana Yoga, one is impure Jnana Yoga. Impure Jnana Yoga is, you can understand, impure Jnana Yoga is, you want to understand yourself as soul and body, and you want to understand God, but for some desire, for liberation. For liberation, that desire that is impure Jnana Yoga. And pure Jnana Yoga is you want to understand Krishna, you want to understand yourself, to understand love. Without any desire, love. That is pure Jnana Yoga. You want to understand God, yourself and love. So what is pure Jnana Yoga? In other words, Bhakti Yoga, no, devotional service. So that is why Prabhupada translates Jnana Yoga as devotional service. And you can see here in text 2, 4th chapter. Just see. Text 2. Anyway, let's read text 1 first. Personality of Godhead Lord Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to sun god. And Vivaswan instructed to Manu, father of mankind. Manu in turn instructed to Ikshvaku. This chapter in Sanskrit is called as Jnana Yoga. But Prabhupada translates as transcendental knowledge. So, this Jnana Yoga was instructed to sun god, then Manu, then Ikshvaku, all those things. But then, second verse, 4th chapter, Prabhupada writes, this supreme science was thus received through chain of disciplic succession, and saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, succession was broken. 2nd verse.
Yes.
Therefore, the science as it appears to be lost. Now, if you read word to word meaning of this yogaha in 2nd verse, 4th chapter, Prabhupada translates as science of one's relationship with Supreme. This is devotion. That's all. Simple, no? So Prabhupada translates Jnana Yoga also as Bhakti Yoga. Why? Because pure Jnana Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. And impure Jnana Yoga is Jnana Yoga with liberation, desire for liberation. So we have to understand, otherwise we will not be able to understand this chapter at all. So okay, after understanding this, 4th chapter has 4 topics. Simple. First topic is 4th chapter is talking about knowledge of self. 4th chapter is talking about knowledge of super self or super soul or God. And then how to attain that knowledge. And also last is how to what are the various sacrifices mentioned in Vedas which can lead us to devotional service, into devotional service. So these 4 topics are discussed in 4th chapter. How do we know that 4 topics are discussed? If you read the last verse of this chapter, the purport of last verse, Prabhupada mentions everything there. So I'm going to the last verse. Generally, Prabhupada summarizes the chapter in last verse. Always, if you look carefully. So Prabhupada says in the last verse, the yoga system instructed in this chapter is also called Sanatana Yoga. So Jnana Yoga is also called Sanatana Yoga. Or that's all. This yoga has 2 divisions of sacrificial actions. One is called sacrifice for one's material possessions. We are reading 4th chapter, 42nd verse, purport. And the other is called knowledge of self, which is pure activity. If sacrifice of one's material possession is not dovetailed for spiritual realization, then sacrifice becomes material. But one who performs a sacrifice with spiritual objective or in devotional service makes a perfect sacrifice. So Jnana Yoga also helps to give a goal to all those sacrifices. There are many sacrifices given in Vedas, no? So we just mentioned there are many sacrifices given in Vedas. Jnana Yoga helps to give the goal of the sacrifices. Goal of the sacrifices is to enter into devotional life. Otherwise all the sacrifices are useless. It is all material, no? So that is 2 roles of Jnana Yoga. One role of Jnana Yoga is to inspire action, to inspire Karma Yoga, is it? Now we are doing service, but if you know why you are doing service, then you become enthusiastic, no? You are chanting, but why you are chanting? If you don't know why you are chanting, what you are chanting for, then what's the point? So Jnana Yoga inspires action. How it inspires action? By giving by making us understand why you are doing that action and what is the goal of that action. Spiritual objective, Prabhupada says. And the second thing Jnana Yoga does is, there are many sacrifices given in Vedas, and Jnana Yoga helps us to understand all these sacrifices are helping us to enter into devotional life. That knowledge it is giving. Otherwise, people can just get entangled in those sacrifices. There are many sacrifices given here. And then they become Pandit. So if you read Bhagavatam, you know that Brahman wives and Brahmanas. So Krishna and Balram were very hungry. So they went to Brahmanas. Brahmanas, they asked food. their friends, but they denied. And their wives, they asked food to their wives, they gave. So that story is exactly this thing. Brahmanas are doing sacrifices or karma yoga, but they don't know they are doing for whom? For Krishna. Because Krishna is asking food now, they are not giving to Krishna. What's this? So which type of karma yoga they are doing?
Brahmanas are doing
Impure karma yoga, with desires for heavenly planets. It's written there. Their goal is not clear. Why they are doing it, it's not clear. They should be doing for God, but it's ritualistic. So Prabhupada says they were very scholarly, Vedic scholars. They were born in Brahman families, but they were the lowest of mankind. Just like now we find in South India. So many pandits, ritualistic people, they don't understand Krishna is supreme, no? So they are typical example of impure karma yoga. Why their karma yoga is impure? Because they don't have knowledge. Gyan yoga, they don't have knowledge, no? Jnana. So Gyan, and what about wives of Brahmins? They were not doing sacrifices. They were simply attached to Krishna. They were doing bhakti, no? So they gave food to Krishna. So they practiced karma yoga. But what kind of karma yoga? Pure karma yoga. See? Brahmanas were practicing impure karma yoga. Elaborate sacrifices, but no objective. But Brahmana's wife, they were practicing pure karma yoga. Pure karma yoga means they were also giving food to Krishna, but without any desire, just out of love. And why Brahmana's wife are practicing pure karma yoga? Why Brahmans are practicing impure karma yoga? Why is that? Because Brahmans didn't have proper knowledge. No? In spite of all Vedic mantras, he didn't have transcendental knowledge. That's why Prabhupada translates this name of the chapter as transcendental knowledge. He had mundane Vedic knowledge. No transcendental knowledge, no jnana yoga. So, but wives had transcendental knowledge because by hearing about Krishna, they were always hearing about Krishna. They were Mathura, no? Vrindavan news was coming always. So they were always hearing about Krishna and they did some service now to God. So because of that service, their heart was cleaned. And automatically transcendental knowledge was revealed to them. And that's how they could serve him properly here. You see, there's a difference.
So the wife loved Krishna even though they may not know that he is the Supreme Personality.
No, they knew. They knew from because they were living in Mathura. Mm-hmm. So Vrindavan news was always coming, no? Krishna lifted Govardhan, all news was there, in Mathura. Like people were going between Mathura and Vrindavan. Just like that fruit vendor came to Krishna, that lady. Yeah. She was coming from Mathura. And many people were going from Vrindavan to Mathura also. To Nand Baba was always going to give milk taxes. Mm-hmm. So definitely they would have been discussing, Krishna did this, Krishna. And Bhagavatam says they were hearing about Krishna from various people. So that's the point there. So you understand now Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, the link between both. So 4 things in this chapter.
Four be transcendental,
afterwards.
That knowledge. It doesn't say, right, do this without attachment, or doesn't give specific knowledge, right? Just give activities of...
No, hearing about Krishna is... That's what, hearing about Krishna is an activity. Karma Yoga. You're hearing. You're doing some action. By that, heart is pure, becomes pure, and automatically knowledge gets revealed. That's the idea. Shravanam Kirtanam. Okay, so 4 chapter, 4 questions. So the first question, first few verses of this chapter is talking about this first question. How do we receive knowledge? So we have already read all those through sun god, and then by parampara it was lost, and then again came back. But the important point in this chapter is there are many verses which you should remember, which are used for preaching here. This chapter is very important. For example, 2nd verse, Evam parampara praptam evam rajarshya vidu. This verse is answer to 2 questions when you face preaching. Sakalena mahata yogo nashta parantapa. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarsho vidu. Supreme science was thus received through chain of disciplic succession, and saintly kings understood in that way. But in course of time, succession was broken. Therefore, the science appears to be lost. So Prabhupada says, science as it is appears to be lost. It is not lost. It appears to be lost. What do you mean by this? The meaning of this is that knowledge was there, but understanding got destroyed. That it's not that this knowledge was not there. People knew all these things, but understanding was lost. And that is why you need parampara. Because time destroys the understanding. Knowledge was always there. So, with time, as true understanding goes out, misunderstandings come up, no? Wrong understandings come up. So that was a problem at Krishna's time. There were so many philosophies, so many theories, Vaishika, Sankhya, Nyaya, so many theories, and all were based on Vedas. Misinterpretation of Vedas. So Krishna came, he told, well, this is my understanding. This is the true understanding of Vedas, no? So this verse is important when anybody asks you that how do we know that this knowledge is the same knowledge which is coming from eternally, no? Somebody could have changed it. Then you can quote this. No. Evam parampara praptam. By parampara, the knowledge is always there, but the understanding of knowledge is preserved in parampara. That's the point. We have to quote this verse like that. And the important word Prabhupada also quotes here is this word Rajrishi. So this word is also helping us to understand that the kings also have to have this knowledge. Kings should be saintly. Otherwise there will be chaos. It's not that politicians don't have to have this knowledge. They also have to have this knowledge. Rajrishi. Okay. This is important verse here. And the next important verse is... Now you can read after that. Now after this, in few verses, from 4th verse to 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th verse, now Krishna is giving knowledge of himself. We told one thing, knowledge of God, that Krishna is giving. So he starts with how knowledge is received. What is knowledge of God? He gives knowledge of God. Why he gives knowledge of God here? Because Gyan Yoga means knowledge. And whom do you want to know first? Yourself or God? Both? God? Or first you want to understand, I am not this body, I am soul. I want to understand God.
Self and then God.
Prabhupada says in Bhagavatam, see, if you have darkness in the room, and you want to understand what is your hand, can you see your hand?
No.
You have to open light. So as soon as you open light, everything you can understand. As soon as sun comes, you can see everything. As soon as you understand Krishna, you can understand everything. So that's why this chapter starts with knowledge of God first. So when you say about Jnana Yoga, first is knowledge of God. That's why Krishna says, Ye paritranaya sadhunam, I come, what I do, how I am unborn, ajo api sanave atma. All these verses here, you can go and read that. I am unborn, I am indestructible, who am I, why I come, all those things. So when we know Krishna, then automatically we can understand ourselves. But Prabhupada, in many of his lectures, he says that if you know Krishna, you know yourself. If you know yourself, you can also understand Krishna. To a certain point. Just like if you know you are indestructible soul, you can also understand that there is something called super soul, because we don't control everything. Is it? So, because Krishna's nature and our nature is one in quality, but quantity we are different. Suppose now we want to enjoy. Now why we want to enjoy? Because it's coming from somewhere, no? That enjoying propensity. We want to enjoy, that means the enjoying propensity is there is in God also. You see, by understanding yourself, you can understand Krishna. We like to love, that means Krishna likes to love. See? So if you can analyze this word, you can analyze spiritual word. Because spiritual word, this word is reflection of spiritual word. Jiva is like a reflection of Krishna. That same nature we have. So by understanding our, you can understand God. By understanding God, you can understand us. So Krishna is compassionate, merciful. So we are also like that, compassionate and merciful. That is why everybody, even a terrorist, will also appreciate compassion. No? Is it? Everybody appreciates compassion. Although he might be compassionate to his group, not to others. Others he'll kill. But everybody, it's universal phenomenon. Everybody appreciates daya, saucham, cleanliness, tapat, austerities, truthfulness. Even a band of thieves, they will be arguing, you should be truthful, don't speak lie. But they're thieves. So why? Because that is there in Krishna. Whatever there is in Krishna, those qualities will be universal. Because all universe is in him. You see? And he is into every particle. So we can understand that whatever is there in Krishna, it has to be in every being. That is why Krishna has dharma. And that is why everybody will appreciate dharma. There's nobody who will not appreciate dharma. It's impossible to do that. We are programmed like that. We are that. We are his part and parcel. Prabhupada gave example of sun and sunlight.
Yes.
By understanding sunlight, you can understand what is sun. By understanding sun, you can understand sunlight. By understanding one drop of ocean, you can understand what is ocean. So many drops. It's big. By understanding ocean, you can understand drop of water. But if you want to choose, first thing comes God. If you understand God, you understand everybody. If you understand yourself, you can get some idea of God, but you don't understand everybody, you see. So it's better to understand God and you understand everybody. So that's why this chapter begins with knowledge of God. So first is how do we receive knowledge? Second is knowledge of God. And this verse is important. Eighth verse. Everybody knows. Paritranaya sadhunam Dushkritam dhan sansapnarthaya sambhavami yogi yoge. This verse is important actually. 4th chapter, 8th verse. Because Krishna says why he comes. Paritranaya sadhunam. Now you read the first line of the purport here. Prabhupada writes important line. According to 4th chapter, 8th verse, according to Bhagavad Gita, sadhu is a man in Krishna consciousness. A person may appear to be irreligious, but if he has qualification of Krishna consciousness wholly and fully, he is to be understood to be a sadhu. So this means Krishna is not coming here to establish mundane religion. See? Because Prabhupada is saying even if he is irreligious, still he is sadhu. So Krishna has come to establish bhakti, the path of love, not the path of moral codes and conducts. There are two paths, morality and love, maryada and bhakti. No? So Brahmana's wife, they broke all maryada, no? We were discussing that example. So Brahmanas, it's their husband. They have to listen to husband. If husband said no, they have to follow the husband. That's maryada. But they not only disobeyed the husband, but they went to Krishna to give him food, is it? And all that food which they made for sacrifice, they took for Krishna. So there is maryada and there is bhakti. And Krishna has come here to establish the path of bhakti. That is Ram avatar and Krishna avatar. So in Ram avatar he established path of maryada. But Krishna avatar he established path of prem. And he taught us that if there is a need to surpass morals and maryada, to establish love, you should do it. That's what he taught us. The bridge that Lord Ram made from Bharat Varsha to Lanka, that Setu, Ram Setu, that was a bridge of morality. But then Krishna came. Krishna told, no problem. I'll make another bridge of love between God and us. And that bridge is more stronger than this bridge. If you can maintain Maryada and Prem, very well, no problem. But if there's a need, forget Maryada. Gopis, they left their husband, went to Krishna. That is why Krishna says, Paritranaya sadhu nam. He doesn't use the word dharmatma. Doesn't use. Of course, in some other verse he uses, no? What's that verse? Dharan samstapnai arthaya. Yeah, dharan samstapnai arthaya sambhavami. In the last verse he used, Yada dharmasya glanir bhakti bharata. Abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmane sujhamyam. So he uses the word dharma there, but then in the 8th verse he qualifies. By dharma I don't mean morality. That's already done. I mean sadhus who are following path of love, path of mercy. It's a different path. You have to understand. So a devotee might look irreligious, but if he is Krishna conscious, he is okay. So you know what this... of course, we are not saying you should be immoral. That's not the point. But the point is we have to understand morality and love. You have to choose love. Don't confuse morality and love, because it's very easy to deviate from principles. Generally, when devotees preach, they come to morality.
Yeah.
No, we are not interested in morality. We are interested in love. We have to establish love. That's the point. How will you establish morality? Everybody is immoral now. Even moral person are immoral nowadays. Everybody is immoral. They might show they are moral, but in America, so much morality, but deep down they are all immoral. So,
does morality help in establishing the love?
Morality helps to certain extent, not always. Not always.
Is
So,
there a difference between regulative principle and morality?
yeah, regulative principles of devotion, they are different. Morality is speaking truth, speaking softly. Just like Prabhupada. Many people used to say to Prabhupada, why are you always abusing? Rascal, nonsense. Always. Many people didn't like, even his books, now people read, what every page he is saying, your cats and dogs, your animals, your rascal. What is a saint? Saint should be moral, no? See? But Prabhupada forgot that morality to establish love. He was interested in love. Forget morality. Forget it. That's not... If you speak morally, then people don't understand love. Prabhupada said, if you speak nicely, okay, you're nice and you have to do devotion, who will agree? Nobody's going to agree. Prabhupada came and he told, you're nonsense, you're this. Then they understood, yeah. You know, if you want to wake up a sleeping person, what do?
Shaking.
Yeah, you don't say, get up. Just shout at him or maybe shake him or slap him, like that. Or maybe when we were children, children, what do?
Yeah.
Like they don't get up, no?
We just pick them up.
You pick them up and throw, whatever. You do something. So like that, people are in such mode of ignorance, they don't understand anything. And in fact, in America, when I came, one lecture I said, like many Americans, no? So they asked me to speak some lecture. So they asked me, you should not speak about Krishna, no God, no surrender, because Americans will fear, no? And they told, okay, I told. So I was speaking about compassion, love and all these things. And be satisfied, be happy. So Gita will make you satisfied and happy. And everything was done. Everybody was happy. But then afterwards, Americans came and they told, yeah, it is so nice message of Gita, be satisfied. I'm satisfied to play my tennis. And that's what is the aim of life. You see, they understood something completely different. Because the message was not clear. You simply talk of satisfaction, peace and love. What happens is they have their own idea of satisfaction, peace and love. So you have to tell them that, see, your idea to attain satisfaction, peace, love, that is wrong.
It's temporary.
That whatever, it's wrong. This is the idea. And if you don't like the idea of religion and God, then our duty is to explain them how religion and God are right. You have got a wrong idea of them. That's our duty as disciples. Not that we change. You see, there's a difference. So that is why we have to understand this purport very nicely. That's why Prabhupada begins with this line. A person may appear to be irreligious, but if he is Krishna conscious, he is to be understood sadhu. Paritranaya sadhunam. Krishna came to protect his devotees. Krishna came to protect love, to establish path, which Ram could not do. Ram came just to establish path of morality. And his desire was unfulfilled to establish path of love. He came, and as you see Krishna avatar, he broke all morals. No, he flirted. He stole clothes. He spoke lies. He did politics. He broke his vow. Every possible moral conduct he broke.
That's why we don't have.
That's why people don't talk about Krishna. They talk about Ram. They like Ram.
Prabhuji,
So,
in
Yeah.
Ram Avatar, does the examples of Hanumanji, Lakshmanji, do they to some degree?
no. They are loving Ram. But Ram really didn't establish by his actions path of love. He established, majority of Ramayana was to establish path of morality. That's what people understand. If you go into details, then you can understand he's also establishing love. But Krishna is like fully love. You can just see. And finish, morality is gone out of the window. No morality. So why? That's what his mission was. Paritranaya sadhunam. He wanted to protect sadhus who love him. And there's another meaning for this. He wanted to protect sadhus, is it? From what? When you love Krishna, then you feel separation from him, no? So he came here to protect them from the miseries of separation. Because when devotees are they feel sad, no? And if a devotee is feeling sad without Krishna, what's the solution? There's one solution. He has to come. There's no other solution. He can't send his devotees. So that's why he says Paritrana Sadhunam. I personally come here because there is no other solution. Vinashaya Duskritam, to destroy demons, that I can do. Through even one devotee can do, anybody can do. But this devotees cannot do. Because how do you get them free of separation? I have to personally go. So that's why he comes. And because he comes, he finds many demons. As side effect, anyway, I've come, so let me kill some few demons. That's the idea. And demons who are harassing devotees, he kills them. Prabhupada says, Prahlad Maharaj. So this verse is very important to understand why Krishna has come. You now understand? He has come to establish path of love. Dharan samsthapna artha hai. Dharma here means love. Dharma has two meanings. One is on mundane platform, that is morality. One is on spiritual platform, that is love. So here is spiritual dharma. And then Krishna says Sambhavami yoge hoge. Why he says two times yoge hoge? Can anybody tell? This is a puzzle. Why he says yoge hoge? What is this? Why he says two times? Yeah, if you repeat it, it can be emphasis. But why emphasis? What's the point?
Because it can go down, so that he is reassuring that he will come back and establish it.
Okay, Sambhavami Yogi, okay, he comes back again and again and again. The point of saying again and again is, the point of saying Yogi Yogi is that he doesn't come by force. See, the point is, suppose somebody asks you, will you come? If you say, aunga, then okay, fine, you'll come. But if you say, aunga, what does that mean? Meri marzi hai, I might come, I may not come, no? You see? Somebody asks you, aap aaoge? Aunga. So it's not like clear, It's a doubt. He might come. If somebody asks, aoge? Haan, aunga. So that's confirmed. So if you speak two times, there's a doubt. He might come, he might not come. He's independent. It's not that he has to come. It is his will. He might come, he might not come. He's not forced to come. So by saying two times, yoge, Krishna is helping us understand there is no necessity of him coming, but yet he comes out of his causeless mercy. That's the idea. Because this verse is a refutation to Karmkandis. Karmkandi, Pandit, they have this theory that Krishna has to come. Arya Samajis also, they have this theory, Krishna has to come. He is also bound by laws of karma, and when the time comes, he must descend. Okay, किसी रस में ना तब समय आ गया है, मैं जाना पड़ेगा. जरूरी नहीं है. It's not necessary. So that's why if anybody tells you, well, Krishna has to come, no. That's why Krishna says 2 times, yoge yoge, sambhavami yoge yoge. I will come. I will see myself. So this verse is very important for establishing both these questions, to refute both these questions.
Where do you understand that detail, Prabhu? How do you understand, or where do you understand?
You have to listen to me. But you see last line of this purport. You see, this avatar of Lord does not kill miscreants, but delivers them by his causeless mercy. Prabhupada is always bringing this point of causeless mercy. Of course, you don't get this understanding directly from this, but there is this understanding. I am just giving you one understanding. That's all. Another understanding of this. Okay, but you see here in this purport, what's there? Which is this purport? Purport, first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. You see, 4th chapter, 8th verse, third paragraph. There are various kind of avatar: Purush avatar, Guna avatar, Shaktivesh, Manmantra, Yoga avatar. All appear on schedule all over the universe. But Lord Krishna is primeval Lord, fountainhead of all avatars. Lord Krishna descends for the specific purpose of mitigating the anxieties of pure devotees. See? Who are very anxious to see him in his original Vrindavan pastimes. So, Paritranaya Sadhunam, I explained this understanding. That they're feeling separation from God. They want to see Krishna, so Krishna has to come. So that understanding is here in this line. Paritranaya Sadhunam. He wants to relieve them from anxieties of separation. And for that he has to come. There is no other alternative. Therefore, the prime purpose of Krishna avatar is to satisfy his unalloyed devotees. So, to satisfy his unalloyed devotees, he is not bound by time. That's the point here. He is bound by love. If you really apply your mind, see, he is coming because of bound by love, not bound by time. That is why he says 2 times, yoge yoge. I come in every millennium, not bound by time, but bound by love. That's how you can conclude from this understanding.
Prabhuji, slightly different yet related.
No.
Question. I have a question. In that Muslims, they will eat prophet.
But I want to...
Okay. Please.
Afterwards you can ask.
Okay, no problem.
Just write it, please, this question.
Yeah, no problem.
You don't forget it. Okay, so the next verse is also very important. So you understand that verse to refute Arya Samaj, refute Karmkandis, and then also to establish the mood of separation. Why Krishna exactly comes? What is exact purpose of his coming? He is bound by love, not by time, not by karma. So ninth verse is also very important. This is very famous, no? Prabhupada used to quote 4th chapter 9th verse. Janma karma chamay tivyame veti tatvata. You all remember this verse? Yes. What is that? Tell me. Without saying. No. Sanskrit. Janma karma chamay divyam evam yoveti tatvata. Then Tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti so Arjuna. Naeti mameti so Arjuna. Yeah. So this verse is also very important. Krishna is saying anybody who knows my janma karma, but divyam. You know what Prabhupada translates divyam as? Just see word to word meaning. He translates as transcendental. Is it? Now what do you mean by transcendental? Can anybody tell me? Anybody knows transcendental birth and activities? What do you mean by transcendental? Anybody?
Transcendental means beyond the 3 material modes, activity is within 3 material modes.
Okay, yeah, that can be one thing. Transcendental means his activities and nature is beyond three modes. But then what do you mean by that? That's my question. What do you mean by that? Beyond modes.
He don't affect, these modes don't affect on him, like don't.
Okay. Yeah, when he comes, the point is, when he does any activity, it is not impelled by modes. That's the meaning of transcendental. Our activities are impelled by modes. When we are in mode of passion, we feel hunger, we eat food. When we want to go to job, we are impelled by mode of passion, we are going. Is it? People who are non-devotees. People who are devotees, their activities are inspired by service to Krishna. Is it? You make prasad, you offer to Krishna, and you take. You want to serve him. Our activities are a little mixed because we also feel hunger. It's a mode of passion, ignorance, but at the same time, devotion. It's mixed. But for Krishna, his all activities are inspired by love, not by modes. That is the meaning of transcendental. Transcendental means love. Whatever he does, if Krishna says to his friends in Golok, I am feeling hungry, I need food. This Brahmana wives, same. He told his friends, no? So why he's told, I am feeling hungry? Not because he's feeling hungry. Yeah, he want to please Brahmana's wives. That's why he sent his friends there. You see, that's the meaning of transcendental. Divya means his activities are inspired not by modes, but by love. That's one meaning. And Prabhupada says in this purport, you read afterwards. You can read afterwards. And another meaning of transcendental is whatever is beyond modes, that is beyond space and time. Transcendental, beyond space and time. If you are beyond space and time, that means you can be at many places at one time. Ras Leela. Krishna is with every gopi, no? He is not limited by space. We are limited by space. That is by at one time we are one place. He is beyond space. At one time he can be at many places. He can expand. 16,108 Queen, 16,108 Krishna. In the night he used to expand, no? So he is beyond space and he is beyond time. He can come at any time. That's what we learned last. So that's the link. Krishna is saying, anybody who understands I am transcendental, I am beyond space and time. That means, in other words, Krishna has contradictory qualities. That's another meaning of transcendental. One meaning is he is beyond, his all actions are inspired by love because he is beyond modes. Another meaning is he is having contradictory qualities because he is beyond space and time. Why he is having contradictory qualities? He can be at many places at one time. This is contradictory, no? This is beyond illogical. This is illogical. Prabhupada mentions in one of his purport, not here, but afterwards in purport, Krishna has contradictory qualities. He walks, he doesn't walk. And he eats, he doesn't eat. He's brahmachari, at the same time he's kamachari, no? Gopis, he's flirting. At the same time he's perfect brahmachari. How do you make sense out of it? He's perfectly truthful, he's God. At the same time he speaks lies. How does it happen? Because he's beyond space and time. He's having contradictions, contradictory qualities. That's the meaning of transcendental nature. This word divya is very important. And this verse you should quote when you meet Dhongi Guru. All these bogus gurus, no? Say, हमारे महाराज तो दिव्य हैं. ऐसे लाइट निकल रही है उनमें से. They make like that, no? Circle. Light. This nonsense. Divya doesn't mean light. वैसे तो दिव्य literally it means light also. Sanskrit dictionary if you see. Divya means light. Divya also means pastimes. Divya also means house. There are many meanings. But if to saints Divya means, doesn't mean light. Divya means, just like Krishna is beyond modes, his actions are inspired by love. Similarly, saints' actions are inspired by love for Krishna. Same thing they get. They also become Divya. Just like Krishna is beyond space and time, he gets contradictory qualities. Saints also get contradictory qualities, but not in same capacity. It's like Prabhupada was as strong as thunderbolt when he was preaching, but as soft as rose when he was with devotees. It's contradiction, no? For Mahaprabhu it is said, he was as strong as thunderbolt and as soft as rose. Devotees are like that. They also get a little bit contradictory qualities. They can change. They can adapt. Is it? So that's the meaning of Divya. See, you can counteract with this. Janma karma cha me divyam. You can't say Divya means light. What do you understand? You have to understand light of Janma karma of Krishna. What? That's nonsense, no? So you have to quote this whenever you meet Bogus Guru. See, complete nonsense. This is what is light. This is the meaning of Divya. Eva veti tatvata tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mamiti swarjun. Anybody who understands, he becomes liberated. Now you understand why he becomes liberated. Because if you understand Krishna is beyond time and space, you also become beyond time and space. And what do you mean by beyond time and space? Liberation. Conditioned means you are limited by time and space. You're conditioned by time and space and modes. And liberation means you get liberated from the limitations of modes, time and space. You're beyond that.
So in the spiritual world there is
No limitation. A devotee can expand like Krishna. He can also expand. Devotee can be at one time at many places. Like Krishna, he can do that. But of course not in same capacity. You can't do. Krishna can do much more. So this verse is important for that, for refuting all these things. For refuting impersonalists also. Prabhupada says here. Krishna doesn't say that you have to understand my Brahm Jyoti. Impersonalist, Krishna says you have to understand my Janma Karma. That's important. Okay, and the next verse is also very important. 10th verse. Vitiraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashrita vahavo gyan tapsa puta mad bhava magata. In one verse, Krishna refutes, Krishna says, okay, anybody who understands my Janma Karma, he can understand me. Who cannot understand me? That's the answer in this verse. There are three people who cannot understand me. Who is infected by rag. Rag means attachment, materialistic people. Who are infected by bhaya, fear. Fear means, who is fearful? Impersonalist. Mayavadis. Mayavadis are fearful. Prabhupada explains in the purport that they fear. They see non-devotees are getting entangled in attachment. Now attachment means form. Forms, names and forms become attached. So Mayavadi says, okay, fine, forget names and forms. Everything is Jyoti. They fear names and forms. And that's why they cannot understand Krishna. And Krodha, people who have Krodh. Who are these Buddhists? Prabhupada explained in purports. Because Buddhists, they say, they get frustrated with all this. They say, well, everything is useless. Whatever, so everything is void. Shunya. They become frustrated. No. This attachment, this formless, form, both are nonsense. See, for impersonalist, form is nonsense. Because you become attached. So you become formless. For Buddhist, formless is also nonsense. What is formless? We can't understand formless. Finish everything, it's shunya, that's all, nirvan. So Krishna says, three people cannot understand me. Who are infected with rag, materialist. Bhai, who are infected with fear, impersonalist. And Krodh, who are infected with anger, Buddhist. They can't understand me. But people who have taken my shelter, getting free of all these three philosophies, wrong philosophies, they can understand me. Okay, so this is important. And then we can, so you should remember this verse. You should always remember, Vitiraga bhaya krodha manmaya mamapashrita. And you know what, if you read Bhagavad Gita, sometimes you have to apply sometimes your common sense also, for sometimes. Prabhupada, if you read Prabhupada purports, you come here, okay, I'll show you. See in the purport, 10th verse, purport, second paragraph. Second paragraph you see? Okay. In the first paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining what I explained to you. Impersonalist, Buddhist and materialist. Okay. So that is one meaning of this verse. Prabhupada often gives 2-3 meanings of the same verse in the same purport. It's not just one meaning. The next meaning to this verse he is giving in next paragraph. And what he writes, according to Bhakti Rasa Sindhu, Science of Devotional Services, this verse, big verse. Okay. So Prabhupada says, in beginning one must have preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. You can find this line? 4th chapter, 10th verse, second paragraph. In next stage, one becomes initiated by elevated spiritual master. Under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins process of devotional service. By executing devotional service under guidance of spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachments. See, becomes free from all material attachments with raga. Vita means free, raga means attachment. You see, so Prabhupada is taking another meaning to that verse. Man mayam apashrita. When you take shelter of Krishna, you slowly become free first of rag, attachment. That's a process. Then what happens? Attain steadiness in self-realization. What is steadiness in self-realization? You become free of fear. We have fear, no, what will happen if I follow Krishna consciousness? ये भी छूट जाएगा, वो भी छूट जाएगा, क्या होगा? We have a lot of fear to surrender to Krishna. So Krishna says you become steady, Prabhupada says steady in self-realization, and acquire taste for hearing about absolute personality of Godhead. So you become free of anger. We are angry towards Krishna, no? So when you're free of anger, you develop taste, you develop love, is it? Wife and husband, either they love each other or they're angry at each other. Only two things, no? When anger is over, then they start loving. Otherwise they fight like cats and dogs. Prabhupada said like that. So in this line, Prabhupada gives a different take to that meaning. When you follow process of bhakti, first you become free of attachments, then slowly free of fear. Free of fear means steadiness in self-realization. And free of anger means taste in hearing. You understood?
Anger means how can you be taste in hearing?
Yeah, either husband and wife, they are angry or they love. There's no anger, you love. You get taste in hearing. Taste means love, no? Otherwise, how do you get taste? Is it? So wife says, darling, you are so sweet. Yeah, can you repeat? I am so nice, your words. Because you love. And if she is angry, then who cares, So whenever we read Prabhupada purports, don't think that Prabhupada is explaining just one meaning. There are two meanings. Many verse purport you read, Prabhupada explains 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meanings. But you have to read very carefully in the purports. So this verse is very important. Also, this verse is answer to two questions. One question is, if anybody asks, who cannot attain Krishna? Okay. With Raga, Bhaya, Krodha, these three people. And who can attain, how do you attain Krishna? What is the process? This is a process. First you get rid of attachments, then you get steadiness, get rid of fear, and then you get taste in hearing. So, it's important. Okay, and then the next verse is also very important. This chapter is you should learn these verses. You know this verse, anybody can repeat? 4th chapter, 11th verse, Sanskrit. Without saying. Yatha mam prapadyante. After that? No. Yes. And then? Vartante. You're not seeing, no? I'm pretty sure you're... Okay. Why this verse is important? Can anybody tell me? Why this verse is so important? Why? Prabhupada quotes many times this verse. Many times throughout Bhagavatam, throughout Chaitanya Charitamrita. You can't afford to forget this verse. It's impossible. Yes?
Because
2-3 people.
go ahead, Mataji. Yeah, actually this was talk about surrender. Until and unless we surrender, we cannot accept the path. So, surrender is very important.
No, but it is more than surrender. He's talking more than surrender.
Surrender means whatever is favorable for bhakti, we have to accept that, and what is unfavorable, we have to reject.
Not exactly, no. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. This verse is talking something else.
Our faith.
More than that. So, Krishna is saying here in this verse that that as you surrender, so shall I reward. The point is, Krishna gives you what you deserve and not what you desire. Prabhupada said that, no? First deserve, then desire. So as you surrender, so shall I reward. You might have so many desires. Krishna, why don't you give me love? Well, I can't give you love because your surrender is not up to that point. So that's very important here to establish this point. Whatever you deserve, that Krishna will give, not whatever you desire. It's not always like that. But if you desire what you deserve, then you'll get that. You see? So desire and deservance should come together. Then you will get whatever you want. Yathamam prapadante tam satheva bhajamyam. And you know, this verse is very important. You see, Prabhupada translates bhajami as reward. In word-to-word meaning? Bhajami translates as reward. Is it? So shall I reward. But bhajami also means what? Serve. Serve, no? So there's one more meaning. As devotees serve me, so shall I serve them. Yeah, he also serves his devotees. It's not just reward. When he gives reward, he thinks that I am serving them, not that I am giving reward. So that's why he uses this word bhajami. So whenever you read purport or this verse, you also have to read the word-to-word meaning what Prabhupada writes. And then you can understand what Prabhupada is writing. So that giving of reward is in mood of service. That's why Prabhupada translates bhajami as reward. So Krishna is saying there is a reciprocal relationship in love. That is what his verse is all about. That I have a relationship with my devotees. They do something for me, I do something for them. Then they do something for me, I do something for them. There is always a competition between devotees and Krishna. Devotees do something for Krishna, Krishna feels obliged, he rewards them. And devotees feel obliged, oh Krishna has given me this, he serves them. It keeps on increasing. Yathamam prapadyante sam sate bhajameham. So if you want, Prabhupada writes, if you want Krishna as supreme master, Krishna will be your master. If you want as friend, he will be your friend. If you want as lover, he will be your lover. If you think Krishna is matter, you will become matter. So that's why non-devotees think Krishna is made of matter. No, their body, his body. So okay, Krishna says, if you think I am matter, I will make you matter. You will eat matter, you will be matter, you will think you are matter, you will shit matter, you will be matter. That's all. That's what we are, no? You think we are matter. If you think Krishna is in cycle of birth at his old age, you will be in cycle of birth at his old age. If you think Krishna is light, you will become light.
Oh, like you said, Krishna is beyond space, we are also.
Yeah, so Yathamam prapadyante. See, this verse goes very deep into all these intricacies. If you think Krishna is nonsense, you become nonsense. That's all. So it's Yathama prapadyante tam sathe bhajamyam. He's exactly doing how you surrender. With what mentality you approach Krishna, he'll give you that. Finish. Okay, if somebody asks you, why do we get enjoyment in matter? What's your answer? Why do we get enjoyment in dead matter? Is it?
It's a mental concoction. It's a
Because of
condition.
attachment.
Because of attachment? Well, but why do you get enjoyment? You might be attached, but probably you might not get enjoyment. For example, I will give example. Sometimes husband and wife, they are attached to each other, no, but they don't get enjoyment. They are always fighting. They can't leave each other. At the same time, they can't stay together.
Gratification.
No, sense gratification. Sense gratification is other synonym of that. I am asking the reason. Why do we get enjoyment
Matter.
in matter? That's my question.
Because senses are outward bound.
We have conditioned.
This is no logic. This is words. You see, this matter is dead. Why, after all, we should get enjoyment in something dead?
Because
That's-
we desire that and Krishna allows that.
Because Krishna is also
Okay. Yes. Now you are coming to that point.
Associated with three modes of material nature.
No, this is all philosophy. This is all words. This is all big words. I need some answer.
every atom has.
Yeah, I mean to say, if you say because we are in modes of material nature, this doesn't satisfy. No, it is not good. It doesn't satisfy even you who are answering.
Because Krishna wants to enjoy.
Because,
Soul nature is quite material.
no. Because if we think Krishna as matter, Krishna's body is made of matter. He's ordinary human being. He's matter. There is no soul, there is no super soul. Everything is matter. Krishna says, okay, if you think me as matter, I will manifest in matter. As you surrender, so shall I reward. So I'll manifest in matter. So, materialist people, they think everything is matter, God is matter. Okay, Krishna says, I'll manifest for you in matter. When Krishna manifests in matter, then we feel enjoyment while enjoying that matter. You see? Because Krishna is manifesting through that. And wherever there is Krishna, there is enjoyment, no? So we start feeling enjoyment in the dead matter. Because Krishna is manifesting in that matter. Because you think that Krishna is matter. You see? So this verse is very important. I'm just giving you a glimpse. This verse is very important. You can go very deep in this verse. And this verse can answer many questions which cannot be answered like that. This is a tough question, no? Why do you feel enjoyment in matter? Why? First of all, you are feeling enjoyment in something dead. This is nonsense. Dead thing. But because Krishna is manifesting. And that is why when you surrender to Krishna, when you understand Krishna as spiritual, Krishna stops manifesting himself in matter. And you lose enjoyment in matter. You see? So devotees then don't get enjoyment in dead matter. They understand it's dead. No enjoyment. Because Krishna has stopped manifesting. Because you have understood Krishna as spiritual. Krishna says, okay, now you have understood I am spiritual, so I will manifest in spiritual things. So he manifests in spiritual things. And what is spiritual thing? There are just two spiritual things in this word. What are those? One is soul.
Soul and the name.
Yeah, one is soul, one is holy name. So Krishna will then manifest in your soul. You'll feel happy. He'll manifest in holy name. You will feel happy. And you lose enjoyment there. So,
if I think this matter is part of Krishna, is that spiritual or materialism?
no, that's okay. That's knowledge. But if you think Krishna is also matter, then that's a problem. You understand? This verse can answer many questions. Now you go and read this purport, you will understand what I am saying. There is. So don't forget this verse. If you forget this verse, everything is gone. Yathamam prapadyante tam sate vajamyam.
Prabhuji, one question. How do
Okay.
we link between these two verses?
Which verses?
10 and 11.
Yeah, 10th verse is people who don't come to him. 11th verse is people who come to him with different mentality, he rewards him like that. Because 4th chapter, 9th verse, Krishna says, people who understands me, he will get liberation. 4th chapter, 11th verse, he says, people who come to me with this mentality, Rag, Bhai, Krodh, they will not understand me. Okay, so the question is, everybody who comes to you, does he understand you? No. With the mentality he comes to me, he will understand me accordingly. So there is also a subdivision. Not everybody who comes to me understands me same. There's a different mentalities. Okay, so that's important, and then we'll go ahead. Of course, this verse is very important, 4th chapter, 13th verse. Chaturvarna Maya system. You remember this verse? Anybody? Chaturvarnyam Srishtam. Without seeing, you should tell me.
Na karma.
Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Then?
Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam. Karma vibhagataha. Tathagatam abhimam. Vyakattaram abhyayam.
Okay, good. He remembers. So you should be ashamed, huh? Kid remembers. You don't remember. You should remember this. Prabhupada said, all devotees should remember verses. Because you can't be preacher without remembering shlokas. You can't do that. We'll speculate. We'll speak from our mind, no? If you know verses, then you can be on dot. You don't go here and there. It's very important to remember. Okay, so you can go ahead. And then, so this is knowledge of God. Is it? Then Krishna is giving... so I'll just go ahead. So I'll just give you important verses. Now you come to 4th chapter, 24th verse. 4th chapter, 23 verse. 23rd verse, Krishna is saying, the work of a man who is unattached to modes of material nature, who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge, merges entirely into transcendence. I told you, people who think Krishna is transcendental, they become transcendental. See, this is a verse. So he is talking about knowledge of self. 4 questions. First question, how do you receive knowledge? It's done. Sun God, Vivaswan, Manu, etc. Knowledge of God, he gives now. I've explained. Knowledge of self, 4:23. And then 24th verse, that's also knowledge of self. This verse is very important to understand how activities in Krishna consciousness has to be performed. Anybody remembers this verse? This is complicated. In this, anybody remembers? In people who are listening on phone? Without seeing, you should speak now this verse. This verse is most important verse for Vallabh Sampradaya. If you meet any Vallabh Sampradaya people, you should quote this. And they will catch your feet. Yeah, you know our Sampradaya. They quote this verse. At time of initiation, they quote this verse. Always. So what is this verse? Brahmarpanam brahma vi brahmagnau brahmanahutam brahmayvatena gantavyam brahma karma samadhina. This very famous verse. Person is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness so to attain spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute, that which is offered is of same spiritual nature. See, so many times Brahma is coming, no? Brahma Arpanam. Arpanam is Brahma. So in Krishna consciousness, whatever you offer, that is spiritual. Brahma Havi, whatever material things you do, that is spiritual. Brahmanahutam, the cause of offering, that is spiritual. Everything should be connected to Krishna. That is devotion. Brahma. Your offering, your materials for offering, your cause of offering, your goal of offering, and the ultimate purpose of offering. When everything is connected to Krishna, then that is self-realization. Because sometimes you can offer something, but the reason may not be connected to Krishna. You see, I am feeling hungry, let's make something offer. Okay, that thing becomes spiritual, but your reason is not spiritual. Because your reason was you. You see, there's a difference. So that material becomes spiritual, prasad, but reason doesn't become spiritual. So you're not fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So that's this verse. This verse is offering us an insight. You have to connect everything to Krishna, and then that is love. But it is difficult. It is difficult because until and unless we have this body, there will always be reason hunger, no? You can't avoid it. So the more you advance, the more we get beyond this body on spiritual platform. We get beyond hunger, sleep, thirst, and then we can attain samadhi. Samadhi comes, then we are in trance. In trance, everything is for Krishna. Everything. So that's what Krishna is offering us insight. Krishna is telling us what is perfection. That's the first line, see? First line of this purport. How activities in Krishna consciousness can lead one ultimately to spiritual goal is described here. And described here. So, okay, you feel hungry. So the reason, okay, fine, let me make something, let me offer, and then let me eat the food to relieve this hunger. And why I want to relieve my hunger? To serve, because hunger is disturbing service. So the only way to connect everything to God is your reason, your material, your goal, everything becomes connected to God. For whom? Tell me, for whom?
Krishna.
No, for whom? For whom it becomes connected?
Oh, for
Fully absorbed.
Yes, people who are fully absorbed in service. If you are not fully absorbed in service, you might connect materials but might not be able to connect reason. But if you are fully absorbed in service, then you can think, oh, this hunger is a demon. It's a demon, no? That friends of Krishna think like that. When Krishna wanted food there were many fruits in that forest, no, Talavan. So friends told Krishna, no, Krishna, we are feeling hungry, we want Talavan fruits. So why they are saying hungry? Because they were saying, oh Krishna, you killed so many demons, but there's demon inside us. Hunger. You have to make solution for that, because this demon is disturbing us, disturbing our play, and this play service to you. So if you're fully absorbed in service, everything, even reason becomes spiritual. Otherwise you can't avoid. It will become material if you're not fully absorbed in service. Because you're anyway thinking of yourself, no? You see? So yeah, I want to get rid of hunger because my service is. For example, people who fight in war, in border, is it? They also eat something, no? They're running, they also eat something. Why they eat? They are feeling hungry, they want energy, but why they need energy? To fight. Their focus is on fighting. Yes, they quickly eat, they are focused on fighting. So that's what he says. That's why he uses Brahma so many times. Brahma karma samadhina. Anybody, samadhina, what Prabhupada translates samadhina? See that, their word. By complete absorption. If you are completely absorbed, then all reason and material and everything becomes spiritual. Otherwise, it cannot become spiritual. You have to be completely absorbed. You'll be trapped by modes of material nature. That's why this word, that is why this is favorite words of Vallabh Sampradaya. They say, okay, be in service. So, this verse you should quote whenever people ask you how to be completely spiritual. This is a verse you have to quote. Or whenever people ask you what is enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness, this is a verse. Brahmarpanam, Brahma, now your offering is connected to Krishna. Whatever you offer, that is connected to Krishna. Whatever you think, that is connected to Krishna. Your reason is connected to Krishna. Your goal is connected to Krishna. That is enthusiasm. See? So this chapter is offering many, many answers to many questions. Okay, and then you come, and then after this, from verse 25 onwards, Krishna is answering the fourth question. What are the different sacrifices? Fourth question. Different sacrifices which can lead you into devotional service. There are various methods in Vedas mentioned which can help you to enter devotional life. Different sacrifices. So you can read all different sacrifices. Vows, demigods, yagyas, so many things. And then you come to this verse, 4 chapter 34th verse. Wait. So what is 4 chapter 34th verse? Can anybody tell me? Don't see that, tell me. Yes. Shena seva. Yakshanti te jnana. Yeah, we should remember the verse number also, 434. So that you know, that's important. You should have to remember that. And then you come to this verse, 439. What's that verse, 439? Anybody can tell? On the phone.
लभते ज्ञानं तत्परं संयतेन्द्रिय ज्ञानं लब्ध्वा परं शान्तिं
Achirena adhigacchati.
अधिगच्छति.
You're not seeing the verse, no? No?
So I'm seeing Prabhuji.
Ah.
I'm seeing.
Then what's the point? I just ask you not to see and tell.
अब मुझे पता नहीं था प्रभुजी, मैं तो देख के बता रही हूँ.
फिर तो क्या है?
वर्स देख के बता रही
फिर छोड़ो, फिर तो गड़बड़ हो गई. नहीं,
हूँ. Okay, प्रभुजी.
that's okay. That's okay. Thank you for that. But you have to remember, that's what I am telling you. To remember this, all these verses with numbers. You can forget your name, but don't forget Gita. Even if you can't remember Gita only, what you can remember? You can remember Krishna. Is it? Vedas are so big. People used to remember Vedas. Even now they remember. There are many people in Vrindavan who can chant Gita from first verse to last verse and last verse to first verse, ulta also. There are people like that. You have to remember. Shraddhava Lapte Jnanam. This verse is very important to understand how do we attain peace. See? Peace, peace. When anybody asks, how do you attain peace? There's so much talk of peace, no? Word peace. So anybody brings question of word peace, quote this verse. 39. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge, who subdues his senses, is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it quickly attains supreme spiritual peace. See? So if you want to attain peace, you need three things. You need faith in this knowledge of self and Gita. You need to control your senses. And then you have, you have to have faith in knowledge and control your senses. Two things. When you get two things, then you get peace. So people talk of word peace, but okay, fine. You're talking about word peace, where is control of senses? There's nonsense. You can't do anything. Your UN, your UNESCO, your peace treaties, it's all nonsense. If you don't control your senses, it's useless. If you don't have knowledge of God, transcendental knowledge, it doesn't help you any. This is important to counteract that question of word peace. And then this text 40. I told you there are so many verses in this. You have to remember. So can anybody tell me text 40 without seeing? Don't see now. I don't think so. Anyway, Agyasya Shraddhanascha Samshya Atma Vinashyati Nayam Loko Asti Na Parano Na Sukham Samshyam Atmana. Krishna says, three people who will never attain happiness. One is Agyani. Agyani means ignorant. So ignorant means educated fool. Prabhupada says, educated fool. Then Ashraddha, people who don't have faith. And Samshayatma. Samshayatma means scientists. Always skeptic. Always doubtful, no? I don't believe this. Prove this. This Samshayatma. Always skeptic. These three people will get destroyed. They will never attain peace. So Agyani means ordinary materialistic people. They can do whatever they want. They will never attain peace. Ashraddha means people who don't have faith in scriptures, like Buddhist. We were talking Buddhist and all those people who reject scriptures. They will not attain peace. They can do their own type of spiritual practices, but if it's not according to Vedas, it's useless. Ashraddha. And Samshayatma means scientist, who are always super skeptic. Is it? Then they okay, show me God first. Show me soul. Well, some things you can, if you follow the process, you will know. Why I want to follow process? So these people will never attain peace. So this verse you can quote if people ask, okay, well, for happiness, scientists are also working for happiness, no? Materialist people say, yeah, everything is for happiness. We are earning money and so many things. We have stuff all around. You can quote this. No, Krishna says no. Agyasya sadhanascha samshyatma vinashyati. Ultimately, you will face destruction. And then, this chapter is finished. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, any questions now? I finished this chapter. 4th chapter. 4 questions, 4 chapter. That's all you have to keep in mind.
The question that I
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. So my question is related to this avatar of Krishna, and in the Krishna book we see that the Devas approach Brahma and Vishnu says that I will descend.
Yeah.
So looks like Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu from the sequence of events.
Yeah. Prabhupada explains. And also.
Also, I've heard that sometimes Krishna comes from Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, and sometimes he descends directly as the original person. I don't know whether.
Okay, fine. I've understood your question. Actually, Prabhupada explains in Bhagavatam that when Krishna comes in this material world, he comes through Vishnu. So Prabhupada explains like when Prime Minister has to come to a state, he takes permission from State Minister, no? He tells, well, I should come or not. And then he does all arrangement, and then he comes, and State Minister then assists Prime Minister to come in the state. Is it? So when Krishna comes, he takes permission from Vishnu. Okay, this is material world, this is your province. Should I come or not? Vishnu says, okay, you come down. So that is why in some scriptures it is said, from Vishnu comes Krishna, because Krishna is taking permission from Vishnu. But at the same time we understand that Krishna is like Prime Minister. That's how he is taking permission from Vishnu. So from Krishna comes Vishnu, that is also right. From Vishnu comes Krishna, that is also correct. With what perspective you are seeing, that matters. That's all. But we understand Krishna is supreme, original, he is the Prime Minister. We understand that. That's all we have to understand. That's all. Okay, Prabhu. Yeah.
Prabhuji, the question that I had was related to the words Sabhavani Yuga Yuga, millennium after millennium. Muslims, they have a belief that Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah, can you please hold? Somebody's asking, yeah.
So Prophet Muhammad.
Sure, Prabhu.
Prophet Muhammad is the last one, and there is no prophet after that. So how do we?
Well, Islamic people say that Prophet Muhammad is the last prophet. There is no prophet after that. Well, you can understand that. Not a big thing. There is no prophet after that for them. Not for all universes. No. So okay, for their I mean to say their lineage is Judaism, Christianity, and Islamic. No. So if it says okay, it's a last prophet, fine, it's a last prophet, but it's not applicable to India, to Aryavrat. There are many saints to come here. There are different. God preaches to different people at different time, place, circumstance according to them. So in their lineage, it's the last prophet, but not in our. So we can understand like that. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
I have a question on 4.9, Prabhu, Janma Karma Chame Divyam.
Yes.
In that translation, it says like, who knows about Krishna and activities does not. What does it mean, Prabhu?
What? Who knows about Krishna and activities not? Just a minute.
In the translation, it says Prabhu.
Your translation, it says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving body, take his birth again in this material world. It's all right. So what's the problem there?
No, but that does not a negation. That negation word I can't take the English meaning of the translation. Can you explain what is the does not?
This English meaning means one who understands my appearance and activities does not take birth again in material world. Does not is related to birth again in the material world. That's all.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu. That's what I related does not so the previous one. Sometimes I really can't understand.
Okay.
Does not
Okay.
related to birth and death.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so
So,
much. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Prabhuji, this now you are explaining it's like a deep science, and it's all like how people who are illiterate and who don't know much about.
Illiterate people should hear. Yeah, everybody can hear, no? If you can't read, you hear. That's why Mahaprabhu said Shravanam. He is intelligent. He didn't say Swadhyayam. Shravanam. Everybody can hear. People who can read, that's extra bonus. People who can read, they should read. But Shravanam will suffice illiterate people. No problem.
Okay. They'll be able to understand Krishna
Yeah.
activities and
You hear, ask questions. They will understand. No problem. Brahmana's wife, they were hearing, no?
that's
And they got it.
so the knowledge will be automatic.
Yeah, but at the same time, on the pretext of hearing, we should not read. Yeah, I'm hearing, so I don't need to read. That's also bad. Reading has its own role. If you can read, that's important. Because by hearing, when you're hearing, you don't contemplate. You don't think. You're downloading. But when you're reading, you are processing. So both has different roles, no? Download also and process also. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. We are closing now.